What's up, everyone? This is Ryan checking in once again for Walk It Off Sports. Tonight I'm coming to you talking about those Atlanta Braves. Just walked off the Reds for the second time in this 4-game series to end up winning the series 3 games out of 4. I hate 4-game series. More often than not, those end up in a split. I just feel like it's kind of a pointless exercise to play 4 games. But big win tonight. Got down after the 9th inning, 4-2. After the top of the 9th inning, 4-2. Bring in Iglesias in a non-save situation, which I can't stand when teams do that. Doesn't have to just be the Braves. I just feel like those closers, they have that mindset where they're ready to rock and roll, coming in, wanting the lead to just be 1 or 2 runs, and they really lock in. And I feel like in situations where it's not a save opportunity, they're not as locked in. And, I'm sure I could look up the stats, and more often than not, they probably perform just fine. But it just seems to me, anytime I'm watching our closer come in a non-save situation, we end up giving 2 or 3 runs up. And whether that loses the game or just tightens things up a little bit, it just, never seems to be a comfortable situation when the closer comes in. But I understand there's times when you need to pitch him if he hasn't pitched in a while and he needs some work, that kind of thing. That's one thing. I get that. But I just hate seeing that, and it looked like tonight we were going to, fall victim to it once again. But hey, the guys battled. You like to see it. Obviously, you hope they can continue to, ride a little bit of this momentum that they have. And tomorrow we go for our 4th chance at getting back to 500 for the first time in the season since we were 0-0. So, of course, everyone knows we started 0-7. There have been 38 teams to start 0-7 in the season. Of those 38 teams, only 4, including the 1980 Atlanta Braves, ever got back to 500. Now, granted, I fully expect the Atlanta Braves of 2025 season to get back to 500. I'm not saying that. But, of course, that's not this team's goal. It wasn't this team's goal going into the season. It should never be this team's goal, frankly. And after over a fifth of the season now, a little bit over the fifth of the season now, we're sitting at 18-19. And the question becomes, how likely is it are we going to make the playoffs, right? To begin the season, ESPN had us somewhere around a 98, 96% chance of making the playoffs. Well, that percentage has now dropped to below 44%, I do believe. So, tonight, I won't go too much into the weeds about what I think is going wrong with the team. Touch on it a little bit here and there. But I kind of want to throw some stats out there at you and kind of give my opinion on whether or not I think we're going to make the playoffs and why I feel that way. So, again, just walked it off against the Reds again. Won a series again, which is great. Obviously, that's what you want to do. You keep winning series. Obviously, things are going to turn around for you, and you're going to be sitting pretty near the end of the season, obviously, right? But in my mind, it's not all rainbows and butterflies just yet, right? So we have played 12 series now. Tonight, us winning this series against the Reds, we have now won 6 of the 12 series on the season. Lost 5. Had a rain out against the Marlins in the series that we played against them earlier. It was the 3rd game of the series. We had split the first 2, so technically kind of calling that a tie in that series. So 6-5-1 in series, right? So we've played 37 games. We still have 125. We have approximately 42 more series to go on the year. We have currently only been swept in a series twice, the first 2 of the season, right? So that's good. Kind of got that out of the way. Haven't had it happen again, so that's nice. At the same time, we've only had 1 sweep where we swept the Twins in a 3-game series earlier in the year. So the goal typically is, hey, let's try to win every series, right? Try to go 2-1. If we sweep, that's just a little cherry on the top. So if we kind of break it down that way, and we have 42 series left to go, if we can somehow win 2/3 of those series, that would be 28 series wins, 14 series losses. Now, if we just assume, for assumption's sake, that we win every series 2-1 and lose the 12 series, the 14 series that we lose 1 and 2, right? Then we would have 70 more wins on the season. That would be 28 series wins, so 56 wins there, 14 series losses, 14 more wins, 70 wins. That would give us 88 wins on the season. Last year in the National League, it took 89 wins to make the playoffs. Now, what I will say is, while we are currently looking, like there's not a whole lot of hope in making the playoffs, a bit of the surprise to me, because going into the year, looking at what this team was lacking, what this team let walk out the door, what this team I felt needed the most was pitching. And that has really been our saving grace throughout the year, and even more so lately. Took a big gamble on a number of things. Took a big gamble on, letting Fried walk, who's doing fantastic in New York. But we all can kind of agree on some level that Fried typically does pretty fantastic during the regular season. Where he seems to stumble a little bit is in the playoffs. But it's really nice to have him in the regular season to help get us to the playoffs. But I digress on that a little bit. Big risk, obviously, letting him walk, kind of hoping, I guess, or planning on Lopez having another career year and Sale having another career year. Now, granted, out of those two, it was way more likely that Sale would have, another, similar year to 2024. But you knew he wasn't going to be the Sale of 2024. That's just, you can't expect someone to win back-to-back Triple Crowns. It's just, highly, highly unlikely. He started turning the corner a little bit the last few starts. But the other risk was you didn't really know what you were going to get, honestly, from Strider. And we see, so far we've only gotten one game because now he's hurt again. Or Schwellenbach, he hasn't pitched a full 162 game season yet. And he's looked good. The record doesn't really reflect it, but that's because of the lack of run support, which I'll get more into here shortly. And then, I myself had personally, a while back written off Bryce Elder. And again, he started out rocky this year, but has really kind of come around the last few outings he's had. If he can somehow give us 24, 23, 25, somewhere in there starts this year and end up going somewhere around 11-9 with like a 4.15 ERA, I think that's an awesome year for him, honestly. He's down to, I think, a 5.06 ERA now, 2-1 record. I still care about, starting pitchers' records and ERA. I know there's some guys that get into the sabermetrics a little bit more than I do. There's certain ones that I like, but me in the end, ERA and WHIP and, innings pitched and strikeout rate, those things, are ones that I really look at the most. Are we not walking guys a lot? Are we, missing bats? Those are kinds of things I like to see. So, but it was a risk really to really, hope to get a whole heck of a lot out of him, and a little bit of a risk, not necessarily a risk, but a little bit of an unknown as far as AJ Smith-Shawver goes, right? And again, he's another one that's over the past 2 or 3 outings kind of really, come around a little bit. And, while I don't expect that to last for Elder and AJ Smith-Shawver all year, I mean, nobody really saw Lopez having the kind of year he had last year. So it can, it can be something that is pretty consistent that they can, hopefully build on and carry throughout the year. But the real head scratcher for me is the offense, or lack thereof. Last year was kind of the same song and dance. This year, made a change at hitting coach. And this team has just got too many guys on it that frankly can't hit. And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, nobody cares about hitting the ball anymore. They're caring about exit velocity. And I don't want to sound like old man, screaming at a cloud or whatever, but they care about exit velocity, home runs, and launch angle, and all this other crap. And, what won it today was Drake Baldwin, spraying a ball to left field to, get a hit, which is all you needed to win the game. And these crazy, wacky, extra inning rules that we have these days, little league crap where you start someone on second base, it just takes a hit. That's all we need, right? Just give me a hit, right? And he didn't even start, right? He's got one of the higher batting averages on the team. And he, gets very few starts for whatever reason. I know when Murphy came back from his injury, he kind of came out the gate gangbusters hitting the long ball, right? Hey, got somebody hitting the long ball, can't get him out of the lineup, right? So he gets a lot more at bats at first, but the dude's a career 233 average hitter, somewhere in there, and he's well below that this year. Don't know exactly what the number is, but in the 220s at best, right? So it's like, why not give this youngster who sprays the ball around, hits with some power, seems to have good plate discipline and pitch awareness, a little more opportunities, right? And then you also have Eli White, who, career 206 average guy, and he's the only one on the team right now hitting over 300. And last night, I know many people have beat this like a dead horse, but inexplicably, he's up with a chance to tie the game, and you pull him for Eddie Rosario because righties haven't hit Pagan well, and you're hoping that Eddie Rosario somehow magically rekindles 2021 and hits a home run, right? Eddie Rosario, who's hitting well below 200, hitting below 150, I believe, and he's who you expect to come up and magically hit one over the wall. And as we all saw, it was nowhere near happening. Now, granted, who knows what Eli White would have done? May have struck out just like Eddie Rosario did, right? But he's the only one on the team batting over 300. He's got the second most extra base hits, other than Shohei Ohtani in a recent span. It's just crazy. It makes no sense. Again, I'm old school, so maybe I don't get enough involved in analytics. I don't know what all Snicker may have been looking at or whatever. But just a stupid move. And like I said, may not have even mattered at all. We'll never know. But what I know is it makes zero sense to take out the guy who has the best batting average on your team to put someone in that's not even batting 150. That makes zero sense. But again, nobody cares about hitting the baseball anymore, right? Other than how far and how hard you can hit it. I don't know what's happened to Ozzy Albies. I don't think he is 100% healthy. And I think he's a liability out there. I hate it. I love Ozzy. But again, he's about a 270 career average guy, and he's hitting in the 230s. And he has come up countless situations all year long with runners on base, and when he's leaving the batter's box, the runners are usually staying on base. And love Matt Olson, but again, it's all or nothing for him. We currently have are tied, I think, for the 9th most strikeouts of any team in baseball. The only stat hitting wise that we are in the top 15 in is home runs. We're 13th currently, right? So, the likelihood of getting to 89 wins, which, it may take more than that. You don't know. There's no way of knowing. But the likelihood of winning 2/3 of our series that we have left and somehow getting 70 wins out of those, or 71 or 72 wins out of those 125 remaining games, it's hard to imagine we can do it. I mean, it just looks like about the only people having fun hitting right now is Eli White and Drake Baldwin and Marcell Ozuna. And it just doesn't look like the team is loose enough when they're at the plate. It doesn't seem like they have the same fire and energy in the dugout, right? I know Ronald Acuna Jr. is coming back at some point, and maybe that helps the dugout dynamic. Maybe that helps Ozzy get going. Maybe that fires him up. Michael Harris has been MIA for pretty much the whole season, and the last 2 games he's kind of snapped out of it a little bit, right? So, these are the guys that we need, mixing it up, on the base paths. That's another thing. We don't small ball anymore either. We haven't in years. I think combined in the last 3 or 4 years, we've got 2 sacrifice bunts, I think both by Michael Harris. We don't sacrifice guys over. We don't steal bases. Ronald Acuna Jr. is the only one who typically steals bases, and I'm mainly talking about the year when he won MVP, when he stole 70-plus bases. He was the only one really stealing bases. You have Nick Allen, you have Michael Harris, you have Ozzy Albies, which, other than the fact that neither Michael Harris nor Ozzy Albies have been on base very much, you have Eli White, you have Fairchild. These guys can steal bases, right? But we're 21st, tied for 21st in the league in stolen bases. So when we have the opportunity, we're not taking advantage of it. We're not moving guys over. And we're really, as far as our run differential, we're right there. We don't give up a ton of runs. We haven't scored a ton of runs. We've scored more than some teams, right? So it's not like we're at the bottom of the barrel, but guys are just nowhere near their career averages in hitting. And, Riley's, off to a decent start. And Ozuna, is continuing to carry the team. But I really don't expect a whole lot out of Ronald when he comes back, honestly. I mean, you look at his year after he tore his ACL the first time, and it was, 15 home runs. It was about 119 games, 15 home runs, 50 RBIs, and he batted 250. And, the next year was the MVP season when he batted 330. But the problem, to me, was going from 2023 to 2024, that period from when 2023 ended to when 2024 started, he took no time off. If you go back and you look at his Instagram or any other social media he's on, he was constantly playing baseball. Constantly. And when 2024 started, he was not right. He hit 4 home runs, drove in 15 runs, and was batting, around 250 again. Just, he was not right. And I remember specifically seeing on a couple of different occasions when he was playing down in Mexico or wherever else he was playing, one time, one at bat, him getting drilled in the hand, right? didn't look good at the time. I told my buddies, great, he just broke his hand, right? Well, obviously he didn't, but, took a nasty looking pitch off the hand. Another time he was batting, something happened with his knee, and I can't remember because I don't know which knee was the one he tore first and which one was the one he tore in 2024. But the knee, there was an issue there too. And so he just never seemed quite right. He never really got going. And then, tears the other ACL. And, I mean, I can't tell you another Major League Baseball player that's ever torn both of their ACLs at any point in their career. If anyone knows, please let me know. But in my mind, I almost feel like it may have been the knee that he tore the first time that he hurt playing in the off season, and maybe he was favoring it a little bit. You don't necessarily notice that you're favoring one knee over the other or whatever the case may be, but I feel like when you start to do that unconsciously, that's when an injury happens to the other knee because, or whatever the case may be, elbow, shoulder, arm, I don't know. I'm no doctor. But what I do know is this team has got to loosen up. We, for whatever reason, continue to let, big guys walk out the door, and we try to replace them with guys that haven't done anything. I mean, your De La Cruzes, your Kelnicks, and just hope and a prayer, you try to bring back Eddie Rosario's of the world, or whatever the case may be, and it doesn't work. And we've gotten very lucky with Eli White and Nick Allen so far, but I mean, again, Eli White's a career 206 hitter. There's going to be a little bit of regression back to the norm. There just is at some point eventually. We've gotten a little lucky with Verdugo, right? But Nick Allen, he's a career around 215 hitter. You're already seeing a little bit of him coming back down to earth a little bit. Defensively, he's done great, but you can't expect a whole lot out of him from the plate. But the problem is you can't expect anything from Arcia either. So you got to keep rolling Nick out there. So the guys that have really got to figure it out are Ozzie and Michael Harris. And if something's not right with Ozzie, then we've got to send him out. We've got to put someone else there. I mean, put Eli White played shortstop at Clemson. Put Eli White at second base. He can play second base. Or put Eli White at short and put Nick Allen at second base. I don't know. But those guys have got to figure it out quick, fast, and in a hurry. Right now, if I had to guess, I mean, we'll be lucky. We've only won half of the series that we've played in so far. So, out of 42, that's winning only 21 of the series. So, if you go by the math, where you win 21, you lose 21, and you win 2 out of 3 of the ones you win, and you win 1 out of 3 of the games, in the series that you lose, then you're looking at another 63 wins. So that gets you to 81. And that's a 500 year, and that's definitely not making the playoffs. So while I think we can win a little bit more, because Ronald is going to, at the very least, inject some energy into that clubhouse and, hopefully produce somewhere between the, 2022 season and 2023 season levels. If we can get 105, 110 games out of him, I really don't see him coming back before the beginning of June. And so if we can get, somewhere around 20 home runs from Ronnie, 60 RBIs, then I think that can help us get to somewhere around 24, 25 series wins, which puts us around 85, 86, 87 wins. So we've got to have some guys snap out of it. I don't expect Ronald to just come in and we look unbeatable after that. But I was talking to my son earlier, and he said he thinks we need Guillermo Heredia back, and I tend to kind of agree with him. Just put him on the end of the bench, give him his swords, let him come out there and fire everybody up, and find him, see where he's at. If he's playing in Japan still, I don't know where he is. Call him up, see if he wants 500,000, whatever. Give it to him. Put him on the bench with his two little swords, and who knows? Maybe that'll get things rolling. But hoping to see the Braves play a little more inspired here, and maybe you can rattle off a winning streak a little bit longer than 4 games, and see if we can't right this ship. Because right now, I may have to come up with something crazy to do if we do happen to win enough games to get into the playoffs, because I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. Have a good one.